Righty everyone, so in this video I'm going to be going over every single metric that we track to hit 250k per month with this client of ours. Actually, we finished the month on about $262,000, which is a record month for the client at around a 3.5 to 4x return on ad spend on mostly a VSL funnel, but also a lot of cash from a webinar funnel as well. And as you can see, cash all time here says 1.3 million, and in total actually cash all time is probably about 2 million for this business that we've partnered with, but 1.3 million in the last 6 months that we've been using this new tracking dashboard. And the reason we have implemented this tracking dashboard, which I'm going to show you in this video, as well as a bunch of other stuff on tracking, is because you have to track your funnel metrics, your sales metrics, and everything, your attribution, in excruciating detail if you want to hit these sort of numbers and go beyond to numbers like, $500,000 and $1 million a month. With this client, we were stuck for quite a while between 100 and 150k a month until we implemented these kind of AI-based tracking systems that I'm going to show you in this video that were holding us back from scaling, that were holding us back from seeing, okay, exactly where we need to go with ads. And now with this client, the path to 500k a month and beyond, very clear at scale with paid traffic. And if you aren't tracking the stuff that I'm about to show you in this video for your info offer, your coaching offer, then you're basically going in blind, especially if you're looking to scale paid ads. It's like throwing darts blind at a dartboard. You're not really going to go where you want to go. So the first thing that you have to do, unless you have an offer, unless you're a coach who is a unicorn level of organic traffic, maintaining 250k a month, 500k a month is going to be extremely hard without anything paid traffic wise. So that's why a lot of this video is going to be focused on paid traffic. And the most important thing that you can do when you're looking to scale to multi 6 or 7 figures is financially model the numbers of your funnel backwards with a calculator. So what I've built here is a calculator that I primarily use for webinars. So let's say I'm running a webinar and I have a new client. These are typically some cold traffic ad numbers. Let's say, we're getting a $10 cost per lead. Let's make it nice and easy, nice and simple. And let's say after that we have, 1,000 registrants, we're spending $10,000 on ads. Cool. If we have our kind of normal metrics of a 25% peak show rate, an 80% retention rate, a 30% booking rate, maybe a 65% show rate on those booked calls, and a 25% close rate on those booked calls, and an average order value of $4,000, just to make the numbers nice and easy, then we're expecting $40,000 in cash revenue from that webinar after spending $10,000 in ads. And of course, that is a 4x return on ad spend. And you can see all of these numbers back. And what this helps you do and why you need to do this is because let's say any of these numbers are out of whack. Let's say my ads have like a super low click-through rate, just 1% instead of a unique outbound click-through rate of 2%. Then my cost per lead doubles, and then my return on ad spend is 2x. And for a coach, if you're only getting a 2x, unless you have a huge back-end upsell and very good continuity and a high AOV, you're going to be pretty cooked. And so this, understanding these numbers before you launch paid ads and before you start running your funnel is crucial, because then you can go ahead and look after you run your first webinar, which we obviously do this for clients, is, what has gone wrong at this point in the funnel? Where is the bottleneck for us to be able to continually hit 4x ROAS, 5x ROAS and above, and then scale that, so that even when we're spending thousands of dollars a day, we can still maintain those levels of returns from ads. So it's super, super important to have a calculator like this. And if you want a calculator like this that you can rebrand and white label for your own agency or your own business and actually just use it, then DM me the word calculator on Instagram and I'll send it over to you. So in terms of bottlenecks, and I think I kind of show you some of these that we run for webinar funnels here, but when you're running ads, it's kind of like you go down the list from like your CPMs to how much you're costing to get a view basically, or get 1,000 views, to all the way down to like your call close rate. And all of these numbers have to be in check. So one of the first things we'll look at is CPM. If your CPMs are too high, like typically you'll see CPMs between $30 and $100. If your CPMs are creeping above $120, $130, unless you're in a really expensive niche to advertise into, then you probably have either some issues with your ad account, or you just need better ads, more ad diversity, and more algorithm-friendly, organic-looking ads. If your unique outbound link click-through rate is below 1.5% or below 1%, then typically you need better ads or better hooks in those ads, because not enough people are actually watching and then clicking through on your ads. And this is for a webinar, if your opt-in rate is below 25%, then your messaging congruency between your ads and your headline is probably off, and you might need to improve your headline or improve your landing page design. If your peak webinar show rate isn't above 25%, then you need to look at your pre-webinar emails, your pre-webinar SMS. If you're using a WhatsApp route to warm up leads pre-webinar, potentially look at using Zoom and also a software called Aevent for your webinar, so Aevent, to be able to get better show rates on your webinars. If your retention isn't above 80% from the peak in the room to who is left when you're pitching the offer, then you need to improve the introduction, the hook, and the training section of the webinar. If your webinar booking rate isn't above 25%, and like we've seen webinars of ours that hit 30% booking rates, then you need to improve the entire webinar, especially the pitch. You could also have a messaging issue from the ads, which just means the wrong people are showing up to your webinars in both of these cases. So don't always just change the webinar. If you're getting the wrong people on the webinar, of course they're not going to book if they don't resonate with your offer and what you're talking about. In terms of cool show rate on cold traffic, like on a cool funnel, like you can be very profitable at 50% show rate, contrary to popular belief, but Realistically, you want to get it as high as possible towards 60, 70%. And on warm traffic, you can get 80% show rates, no problem at all. And on cool close rates, if your close rate isn't above 30%, I mean, you can survive with a close rate at 20% if your AOV is good and you have a very high ticket offer. But typically the goal is 30%. And if your close rates are too high, meaning 40, 50, 60%, then that typically means you need to increase price. Now, for this client, we did run a VSL funnel. So the metrics you want to be looking at are the VSL play rate, the application rate, the drop off in the application, the qualified booking rate on the landing page for a VSL funnel as well, to try and increase those metrics over time. Now, in terms of sales, most people only look at their show and close rate when it comes to sales, which are important metrics. But with our sales team, I am like not as fussed with individual sales reps on their show and close rates, because they don't tell the whole story. Because sales reps can very, very easily manipulate data. And so specifically for sales, we judge our closers mostly, and even judge our whole offer and the sales of the offer on one metric, which is cash per booking. Because it's very, very easy for a closer, like I said, to manipulate data. But when we only calculate and track kind of cash per booking as the main metric for the closers and the setters, it puts the responsibility on them for maintaining a high show rate and owning every single lead and making the most of every single lead that books on their calendar, rather than just closing lead on down sales, which inflates their close rate, but then having a very low average order value and overall making us and the company less money. And it also prevents closers from marking all of their leads as disqualified. We have only like a 7% DQ rate, which should be a box here that I cut off to mask bad closing skills, just marking all the leads as DQs. That will impact their cash per booking, because even if they're disqualified, they are still a booking. And so it incentivizes the closers to make the most of the leads that they do get. Same with the setters. And it's a very, very good way to see who your top performers are. Even if their close rate is slightly lower or show rate is slightly lower, they may still be outperforming someone just based on cash per booking. So that's really, really important as a sales manager to understand. Then, in terms of attribution, if you haven't got correct attribution set up, then you're really, really cooked. Because what attribution is simply matching an ad to a lead, so that you can see common patterns of winning and losing messaging. And even if we're getting a ton of really like cheap bookings and cheap leads from this ad, if none of them are showing up to calls and none of them are closing, then that's a sign that we obviously need to cut that ad. And even if there are ads that are like more expensive for the leads, for the bookings, but they're closing at a very high rate and the ROAS is really good, then we need to scale those ads. And that's literally why you need UTM attribution. And to set this up, you need to add UTM data to all of your links from both ads and organic, and ensure that that data is stored in your CRM when a lead is captured. So for example, whenever a lead books a call, we can see instantly, we grab this from the landing page link that's at the top of the link through Typeform, and we can see whether they've come from a YouTube description, which funnel they've come from in terms of the campaign, so whether it be a webinar, free community, VSL funnel. And then what we can also do is create a consistent loop of feedback from our sales and our marketing teams, so that ads can improve and sales can improve and vice versa. So on our call outcome form, which I'm going to get into in a second, and you can see here, we have a lead score rating. And essentially what we get the closers to do after every single call is rate the lead on a scale of 1 to 5 on quality, not closability. Because a lead can still be unclosable today and still be like a 5 out of 5 lead, perfect fit, but we just couldn't handle the objection. But a lead can close and also be a 2. It could be a really, bad lead, likely to refund, that we still closed, and we don't want more of those types of people on the calendar. And so what that allows us to do is then put all of that information into Claude, because we store it in Airtable, and then say, okay, which of our ad sets, which of our campaigns, which of our ad messaging is leading to more like 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5 leads, and which are leading to the 1 and 2s that we need to cut. And that also goes for organic, which YouTube videos are leading to worse quality leads, which YouTube videos are leading to high quality leads. And that also means that we can have consistent meetings with the sales reps where we go through all of the specific, problems and issues with 1, 2, and 3 leads that we can solve in marketing. And also allows us to think, okay, if we're getting a ton of 5s, what is good about those leads? Are they, do they have a specific pain point? So an example I wrote down here is like, let's say really good leads, they're really struggling with this one thing. They're really struggling with a product in ecom. If that's the case, then why don't we double down on that in our content, in our ads, and in our messaging? So it's really, really important to have this set up. And also, if you're launching a paid traffic funnel from scratch and you already have all of this data coming through from organic leads that you've been closing just through YouTube and Instagram content, it's easier to validate messaging on paid traffic based on all the data that you have from the sales team on all the calls that you've taken. If you have some sort of call outcome form and even onboarding form for clients when they come through, asking them what was their biggest problem, what made them like want to buy from you, and all of that you can then apply to ads when you launch ads. Now, when it comes to setting up tracking, I'm going to go through all of it. So first of all, Claude is like a game changer here. In terms of tracking the front end metrics, all you really need, like I say, is Ads Manager and Claude. So we even have these webinar performance dashboards where essentially we connect either Webinar Jam or Zoom through API to Claude Code alongside Ads Manager, and then simply our Airtable data from the form that I'm going to get into. And literally it plugs all of the data, and we can see this week on week per webinar. It's actually insane. I'm going to show this live now. So as you can see on this dashboard for the webinars that we run for clients, we can see every single metric that we could obviously previously see in the predictor inside of a live view that automatically updates. So we can see for our May 24th webinar from a week ago, we spent $4,278 on ads. We can see our CPM, our link clicks, how many landing page views we got, our registration rate and how many signups we got, our show rate, peak show rate, how many stayed until the pitch, booked calls, close rate, and cash collected, and obviously return on ad spend. So you can see here that one of our bottlenecks is peak show rate. We're still struggling with email deliverability for this client. We're warming up their domain, and also close rate slightly low. Of course, we don't have a huge data pool to go off of, but even still, because our average order value at $8,000 is really high for this client, we did a 5.6x return on ad spend with still some leads, in the pipeline from this webinar that may close in the future. And then underneath this, we can see all of our ads that got over $50 in spend specifically for this webinar. So we can see that here, our winning ad that got like $2,900 in spend, got a 23.7% sign up rate, 28% show rate, and an amazing booking rate at $200 cost per call. 11 of them showed, 27.3% of them closed, and great 8.45 cash ROAS on just that ad. But then we can see that there was an ad that got $567 in spend, very good link click-through rate, very good sign up rate, and was actually a lot cheaper in terms of cost per lead. Yet the show rate was quite low and our booking rate was pretty terrible for that ad. So that the one booked call we got cost like all of the ad spend, $567, and it didn't even close, which is kind of what I was going back to, is like you might see this ad, see it winning, and then say, okay, we want to force spend towards it, put it in an ABO. But if you don't have the rest of this data and you don't track it accurately, you cannot see that. And then in this dashboard, we can also see for the next webinar. So this one still has plenty of leads left to calls to take and leads to close and deposits on the table. We're currently sitting at 2.5x return on ad spend after spending $5,000 on ads. And once again, we can see where all of the leads are coming from. And then for the May 31st webinar, which once again, we have plenty of calls being taken today, we spent $3,500 on ads. I mean, very, very good on the Sunday webinars, and actually our weekday webinars see a drop in show rate. So that's also something to bear in mind, because this client really wants to spend on us. We want to run webinars twice a week, but it's important to bear in mind that we see, okay, on Sundays, we're getting way better show rates than on weekdays. And yeah, we can see that for this webinar, like we had an ad, this second ad here that was getting quite a high cost per book tool, double, this first winning ad that we have. But yet one of our first closes came from this ad. So we know that, okay, potentially this is a winner that we can look to scale over time. So this is so important to have. Obviously doing this for a VSL funnel too, because if you don't have this, you just can't see. And it's super easy to build. All you need to do is just ask, give Claude the data and then ask it to build what you want, how you want to see the numbers. So this is one that we have for a VSL funnel of ours, where we see the spend, cash collected, currently at a 3x return on ad spend and a 6x revenue return on ad spend. So the real gap here, if I'm looking at a bottleneck, is the difference between cash and revenue. But to be able to track this cash collected data and the closes and all of that, that data needs to be coming from somewhere. And so like I mentioned before, it comes from a call outcome form. So our sales reps, both closers and setters, are filling out this form after every single call. And we use ours in Airtable because that's what we've had it for ages. But to be honest, right now, you could use Claude and vibe code your own form very easily that sits inside of some sort of central dashboard for your client or for your coaching business. And essentially, the fields that the rep fills in on the form are the lead name and the email, the outcome of the call. So we have options if it's closed, pitched but didn't close, a follow-up, no show, reschedule, DQ, then obviously deal value and payment terms. So what was the cash collected and what was the revenue for the lead? Obviously that lead score that I mentioned earlier. And then, reasons for DQ, reason for no show, like why did they close? So basically what happened on the call and why. If they didn't close, like what was the top objection? So we can track our objections, see if there's closers struggling with specific objections, all of that sort of things. And then, language that we can ask, what was the prospect's biggest pain point, biggest goal on leads that do close, and on leads that no show, like what was the context on them no showing? So we can consistently improve and feed all of this data that gets stored in Airtable into a Claude chat and say, okay, what's going on here with this? Also, the UTM source campaign and content, all of that data gets auto-pulled from the CRM, and obviously through the connection with the email gets connected to each lead inside of Airtable. So we can see, based on which ad, what are the common things that are happening? What is our close rate per ad? And that's how you can build a dashboard like this when you have outcomes for every single call that shows you the close rate, the cash this week, the show rate, how many calls you booked, the setter commissions, the closer commissions, even setter commissions and closer commissions by reps. So it's very easy to track that sort of things. Like what you can do is completely endless. And so every single week we put our Airtable CSV into Claude, and we can say, which ads and which campaigns are bringing consistent lead scores under 3, or are based on their ad spend is not bringing good return, or is an ad that is, although cheap and is getting a lot of spend, is not actually bringing the results that we want to see. That will just no showing on calls. We can also ask, what objections are bringing most on calls? What are the common pain points and common, goals that we're hearing about on calls that we can bring into our ad messaging? And then something we also do is connect an AI agent built with Claude Code that is connected to all of our API keys and all of our entire workspace. That basically is the one that built the dashboard that I just showed you. And essentially what it does is it pulls at the start of every day and at the start of every week, the previous week or day's data. So I can show you for this offer end of week roll up for the week of May 18th to May 24th, we did 64K in cash. Our show rate really did slide, but our close rate was very, very strong. We can see how much ad spend, the return on ad spend, specific ad overperformers and underperformers, which is so important to see, as well as the comparison comparison to last week, and then the specific data on closers and setters so that we can flag that to the sales manager so he can train them and improve them on specific things they're facing. If you don't have this in your coaching business, you're absolutely cooked, because you cannot see and you cannot scale. So that is what we're doing right now with attribution. I'm sure it's going to change over time, and we're going to keep improving it and implement AI agents that can basically automatically flag things that we need to look at. And this, if you're running an agency, is going to help you scale to more and more clients and help you get those clients better results. And if you are a coach who's watching this and wants us to come in and done for you and get you maybe similar results to these, no guarantees, of course. You have to put in a lot of work if you want to make $250,000 every single month if you aren't there already. You can check out the link in the description to work with our agency. And if you're an operator or an agency owner who wants to get access to some of these systems and consult one-on-one with me, there's a VSL for you in the description of this video as well. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'm back in the room where I made the first video on this channel, so that's pretty cool. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.